Hello there. Do we have some people out there? Wave to me if you can hear me. You can hear me. That's awesome. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Glen Eira Climate Action Network, GECAN's evening, helping everybody understand the best way to get off gas. And we've got a fantastic lineup of people to entertain, inform and educate you this evening. My name's Peter Vadiveloo. I'm coming to you from Kulin Nation and I acknowledge that this land was taken by force. It was stolen, and as uncomfortable as it is for all of us people who are non-Indigenous people, we are living on stolen land and we enjoy and reap the benefits of the land that was stolen by our predecessors, and in my opinion, we need to do everything we can to address that issue. So I'll be your host, your MC for this evening, and we've got coming up, we've got the wonderful Willie Pepper from the Boomerang Foundation, who's going to give us a welcome to country, and then we will have Judith Lucy coming on to chat about a bit about her climate journey and what brought her here. And then we are going to hear from Pete Mercurio. Pete is from the Yarra Energy Foundation, and they have organised this, or they run a government-funded body called the Metropolitan Community Power Hub. And that helps people get off gas, essentially. So I thought, while people file in, I'll just strum a few chords. So the Metropolitan Community Hub is this fantastic resource for people to answer their questions about anything they have to, questions they have about getting off gas, and also all sorts of other things about being sustainable and dropping our carbon emissions. They have all the information there, plus they also have contacts with accredited suppliers, and they can put you in touch with accredited suppliers for getting your home off gas, putting in solar panels, getting solar batteries, putting batteries in, insulation, all those sorts of things that are really helpful for all of us in our homes to get off gas. And I'm just giving a little bit of a strum, a little bit of a grace moment here for a few latecomers. We've got over 200 people have registered, so that's wonderful. So rather than sit there and look at a blank screen, I thought, well, you can stand there and look at me playing the guitar, perhaps. Okay. I'll put my guitar down. Thank you very much. So we've given a 5-minute grace period. I think that's good. And so we are ready. How's my shirt looking, everybody? Does it look okay? How's my jacket looking? How's my hair? Oh, the way the vision thing cuts off the hair, I feel like, who's that guy from the front man, one of the guys from Kiss, who has his hair like in a really weird sort of way? Gene Simmons. I look like Gene Simmons. That's not a very good hair look, is it? I should have addressed that before I got on. All right. The first thing I'd like to do is, as a sort of official opening to this evening, is of course to have a representative from the Indigenous land that we find ourselves on, and particularly Glen Eira. So a lot of Glen Eira is in the Boomerang lands, and so I would like now to very happily introduce Willie Pepper from the Boomerang Foundation, and he will give us a welcome to country. Thanks a lot, Willie. I think you're on mute, mate. You're still on mute, Willie. So we've just got a bit of tech issue while we get Willie up and running. It's always the case, isn't it? We've had a little tech run and everything was fine, and then once you go live, some little glitches come along. Oh, he's back now. Thank you so much, Willie.
Thanks very much, Pete. Good evening. My name's William Pepper. I'm a Gunai.
Can anyone else hear?
Kunai man.
Go ahead, Willie.
Yeah, at the moment
Will I continue? Seems to be a bit of a glitch in the audio.
Go ahead, Willie.
Okay, good evening. My name's William Pepper. I'm a Gunai Kunai man. My father was born down at Lake Tyers Aboriginal Mission, down at Lake's Entrance. My mother is Yorta Yorta. She was born on the Camera Gunja Mission, Aboriginal Mission, up on the border between New South Wales and Victoria, up near Shepparton. But I will continue. Woman GECA, as a representative of the Boonwurrung, Melbourne's first peoples, I am pleased to be able to welcome you all here this evening on behalf of Nawit Carolyn Briggs to Getting Off Gas event. I would like to pay my respect to the Boonwurrung ancestors and elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge all of you who are on different lands meeting tonight. We are especially pleased to recognise the commitment Glen Eira Emergency Action Network and Yarra Energy Foundation have made today in paying respect to the spirit of this land and its first peoples. Through this, you have shown the willingness to honour sacred ground. It is important for all Victorians to understand and appreciate the history and culture of the Indigenous people of Melbourne, who have played a significant role in the development of Melbourne, both before and after European arrival, as they are unknown to many people who live on this beautiful land. The struggle to preserve their culture and traditions began with the ancestors in the 1830s. One of the lessons we should take from this struggle is the way in which the elders and leaders forged alliances that led to many of the achievements that we take for granted today. As Australians, whilst we may have all descended from different clans and language groups and countries from around the world, we can all learn from this lesson. The word welcome in the Boonwurrung is woman GECA, and it translates to come with purpose. It is a contract between the people as the custodians of this land and yourselves to ensure our laws are adhered to and to guarantee safe passage for those who ask. According to tradition, this land has always been protected by the creator Bunjil, who travels as an eagle, and by Warn, who protects the waterways and travels as a crow. Bunjil taught the Boonwurrung to always welcome guests, but he always required the Boonwurrung to ask all visitors to make two promises that I will ask of you this evening: to obey the laws of Bunjil and not to harm the children or the land of Bunjil. This commitment was made through the exchange of a small bow dipped in the water and the words spoken, woman GECA. Thank you very much for your evening and enjoy your night.
Thank you so much, Willie. Really appreciate you giving up your time to come and speak to us and welcome us to your country, or to the Boonwurrung country. Thank you so much. And for anyone who's interested, Boonwurrung Foundation, so the Glen Eira area, for those particularly who live in Glen Eira area, we are on Boonwurrung land, and contact the Boonwurrung Foundation, get in touch with them. It's a great thing that we have greater connection and communication with the owners of the land that we live, work and play on. The other thing I'll quickly indicate to you, if you I don't know whether very many of you have heard of the wonderful organisation called, or scheme called, Pay the Rent. And that is something where anyone can donate, or not donate, I'm sorry, it's not donation, it's paying the rent. So those of us who are non-Indigenous to pay the rent for being on this land, which we are not paying rent on, the land that was stolen from the original people. So you can go to the Pay the Rent website and for example, I do, and I donate a certain amount every month, just go straight in and it pays the rent for me being here, because we all pay the rent to the people who own the land or the houses that we're in, for those of us who pay rent. And but somehow, once again in our culture, we've forgotten to pay the rent to the original owners. So please go to Pay the Rent. I could recommend that. Once again, thank you so much, Willie. Beautiful backdrop there. Can you tell me where that backdrop that you've got there, Willie, came from?
That's my front yard, actually. I live down at Rye on the peninsula. So
Oh my goodness.
that's my view every morning and every evening, mate. So yes, a little bit spoiled.
A little bit small. I think we're all coming down to your place, Willie. Now we're all coming down to get a load of that.
No worries, mate.
That view. That's
quite
awesome.
Nice. It is quite nice.
It's gorgeous.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks again, Willie. Okay. So thank you very much. And the next item on our agenda. So the organisation that is running this is, you can see a little up on my shoulder there, GECAN, Glen Eira Emergency Climate Action Network. And we have the wonderful Belinda Hayden, who is a co-convener and a creator of that wonderful organisation. So I'd like now to welcome Belinda Hayden to say a few words introducing GECAN and letting you know what GECAN's about. Thanks, Belinda.
Thanks, Peter. Hi, everyone, and thanks so much to Willie for your beautiful welcome to country. It's really a great honour to have you speak with us this evening and to have you here. So tonight I'm coming to you from the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I'll acknowledge their sovereignty and that these lands were stolen from their ancestors. As non-Indigenous people, I think it's important to take a word from what Willie has said and create alliances with traditional owners and keep the promises of Bunjil, caring for land and caring for nature. So, as Peter said, my name is Belinda Hayden, and with Bruce Cutts, we're co-conveners and co-founders of the Glen Eira Emergency Climate Action Network. And I'm going to keep this short because I know you're really keen to hear from Judith Lucy. I certainly am. So GECAN started January last year when 20 people gathered in my living room. 20 people who were frustrated with the lack of action from governments, and together we decided to focus on community action and local government. We campaigned for our local council, Glen Eira, to declare a climate emergency. And in May 2020, due to a lot of hard work from people within council and a good community campaign, the council declared a climate emergency and committed to zero emissions by 2030. Since then, GECAN has made submissions on the council's open forest and climate emergency strategies, among others. And we've also drafted a position paper to support our campaign that's ongoing currently against a destructive land management plan that's proposed for the Caulfield Racecourse Reserve. So if you're interested in that, please do get in touch with us. There'll be details in the chat. This initiative tonight is the start of, I guess, the next initiative, which is really about reducing emissions in the community. This is done together with other local climate action groups and in partnership with the Metro Community Power Hub. You'll learn more about that. And as I said, reducing emissions and putting the power back into the hands of our communities. We'll hear about changing gas hot water systems and heating system to electric, putting on solar panels. And then our next event will level up and we'll hear about community batteries. So making changes in our own lives and households is really important. They're tangible things that can help us to take a little bit of control in a situation that seems very nearly out of control. But what we really need is system level change. And by making changes across communities, we can send strong political and economic messages about the kinds of power we want and the kind of future we want. Our campaigns and initiatives at GECAN are led by our members. So if you have an idea or a skill or just want to make change, join us. As I said, we'll put details in the chat. And before I hand over, I'd like to thank everyone who was involved in putting this event together, the organising group, Bruce, Paul, Catherine, Peter and Sally, and Rose and Helen for promotions as well, to the Yarra Energy Foundation team, Lachlan, Lisa, Tim and Peter, and to the Sustainable Hour podcast for having Peter on to talk about this event. So if you haven't heard about the Sustainable Hour podcast, do give it a listen. And thanks to you everyone for coming along. It's great to meet you, especially when you could be out there in the world and not on Zoom again. So please sign up to our mailing list, come to our monthly meetings and get involved in our campaigns, and enjoy the session tonight.
Thanks, Belinda. Thank you so much on behalf of GECAN. And one of the themes of GECAN and this night indeed is, of course, we all know our governments are letting us down with poor policies and poor laws. So it's really about for us to take action and for us to lead. It's the people leading the government, but the people doing the right thing and show it, because our governments won't put in the necessary legislation. And a night like this is about that. It's about us getting our homes off gas for a start, so the less demand there are for supplying homes with gas, the less likelihood that the government will want to fund gas. And of course, with the next aim, sometimes we get our homes off gas and onto electricity, and then you can buy your electricity from a renewable provider. So, but the point I want to stress is this is you being here, and what GECAN does and what this night is about is us, the people, taking control when our governments won't lead. So we will lead our country to the right way. That now brings me to the wonderful Judith Lucy. Now, I'm a huge fan of Judith Lucy. I'm sure like 90% of people here just want to see Judith Lucy and the whole gas thing. Yeah, whatever. If we have to put up with a bit of gas talk, let's do that, because we really just want to watch Judith Lucy. I'm a fanboy from many years ago. So those of you, so Judith Lucy, of course, wonderful, like what do you call, like, she's a monarch of the comedic world for Australia. And so tonight we're talking about sustainability, getting off gas, climate change. So Judith, you're a comedian. So what brought you here tonight other than our email?
Well, Peter, first of all, I would also like to thank Willie for that amazing welcome to country, and to acknowledge that, we are coming from stolen land, and that we are all we owe an enormous debt to Australia's First Nation people. And and especially when we're dealing with things like climate change, we have so much to learn. So thank you so much, Willie. In terms of why I'm here, I think there's been a terrible, terrible mix up, Peter. That's all I can say. I have no idea why I'm here. In all honesty, I mean, when I saw that I was listed as a comedian and a climate activist, I thought, well, I'm working towards being a climate activist, to be honest, because I'm just not doing enough. And that's, I feel like I am very much still on the journey. But I think we all know, Peter, that the reason I'm here is that maybe a couple of people registered tonight for pretty much what you've said, because they really don't give a rat's ass about getting off the gas, but they might be comedy fans. So my real hope is that by the end of this evening, people are going to go, Judith Schmudith, I don't care about that. I am going to get myself an electric oven. So I think that's why I'm here, Peter.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Thank you, Judith. And so I guess what I'd like to ask you is what's been your climate change journey, Judith?
Well, I mean, I have no idea where everyone is at, and I'm sure we are all at a different point on that journey. I reckon I am representative of a lot of people, though, and that, I'm a left-leaning, wanker. Let's just get it out there. And I mean, it's not like I ever doubted the science. I always felt like I was doing my bit. I recycled. I had my little cloth bag. I cut down my meat. I started taking more public transport. I paid whatever it is, the $1.78 to offset my interstate travel. So that's really got the whole flying thing covered. And I think there was a large part of me that just thought, oh, that'll do. You know, I'm a good person. I'm doing other stuff. Hasn't Leonardo DiCaprio kind of got the whole climate change thing covered? I really did, to a large extent. And then I was aware of the fact that with each passing year, my growing panic, it just, I couldn't block it out anymore. I realized that what I'd been doing was just the bare minimum that basically meant I could live with myself and keep my head buried in the sand. Like, I remember making the conscious decision not to watch Inconvenient Truth because I thought, yeah, I kind of get it. And that's just going to be really depressing. But there just came a point where I couldn't do that anymore. So, I started to realize that the reason that I wasn't doing more was actually because I was completely overwhelmed and paralyzed and had no idea what to do. And as you've already touched on, Peter, so disheartened by governments all over the world. But gee, our government's particularly disappointing. So I did what I often do, actually, or what I've started doing in the last few years, is I thought, well, I'll do something in my area, because that seemed like, it seemed like a really good first step. So I'm in St Kilda. I'm really near the St Kilda Botanical Gardens. So, you know, looked up Port Phillip Bay, what can I do? And so I started volunteering at the Eco Centre, which is in the gardens. You know, it was just, it's a great place. It was every other Friday. I was weeding, I was planting seeds. No idea what I was doing, never gardened in my life. But that was just this really tiny little first step. I loved it, by the way. I never thought I'd get excited about a worm farm, but there I was. And that's where I met a wonderful woman called Deb Punton, who some of you might know. And Deb, and in fact, I'm actually missing an Active Hope session with Deb tonight. Active Hope, for those of you who don't know what it is, well, Google it. But it's a great book written by Chris Johnston and Joanna Macy. And in fact, it's about dealing with climate change and finding your part in it all, working out how you can use your skills to, you know, make the world a bit of a better place in terms of that. Anyway, Deb started talking to me about another organization called Climate for Change, which some of you probably know about. It's a grassroots organization. They can do this again. They go into people's homes and they hold these really great personal conversations about climate change. So it's really grassroots. It's kind of like a Tupperware party or a sex toy party. I would imagine, you know, there's less talk of, well, look, there are less dildos for sale and a lot more talk about droughts and floods, but it's an amazing organization. I did their facilitator course. I wound up hosting a couple of their benefits. Then the next thing I think I did was, because Deb has very much dealt with her own kind of, despair about climate change. And one of the things that she does a lot of stuff, but she does tune into nature experiences. So I did one of those. The best way I can describe it is that it was like going on a date with a tree. And quite honestly, given my track record, it may be the best date I've ever been on. And I was honestly just kind of present with this tree. I mean, Deb was there and I asked the tree for its permission so that I could touch it and smell its leaves. It does sound a little like I've lost my mind, but it was actually just incredibly moving, just being present with this living creature and kind of acknowledging that we were all connected. And I'd also just read Richard Power's book, The Overstory, which is all about trees. And both of those things just made me start looking at trees differently. And in fact, they kind of just made me start looking at trees, I guess, in a way that I hadn't before. All of that kind of was part of and or led to a podcast series I did for the ABC called Overwhelmed and Dying. And the gist of that was me asking the question, how can I make the most of the time that I have left on this planet? We interviewed a bunch of amazing people. Everyone I interviewed, I asked them if they were overwhelmed and what they were overwhelmed about. And I don't think anyone will be surprised that 99% of the people said yes, and the first thing they talked about was climate change. So that wound up being quite a through line in the series. Other kind of themes were community, grassroots, purpose, being a part of something bigger. So we thought, well, how can we end this? And I thought, wouldn't it be great to go to some amazing, just some amazing natural place in Australia, like the Great Barrier Reef or Uluru or Kakadu Park. Anyway, I went down the rabbit hole one weekend and I thought, what about Ningaloo Reef in Western Australia? I am a Tim Winton obsessive. So the reason I knew about Ningaloo was because Tim is an ambassador for Protect Ningaloo and he's written about it extensively. So we thought, well, wouldn't it be incredible if we could go there? Because I don't know how many of you know about Ningaloo. It's actually, regrettably, one of the last healthy coral reefs in the world. Over 20 years ago, there was an amazing grassroots campaign to save that whole area from being developed. And then when we were making the podcast, which was 2 or 3 years ago now, wouldn't you know it, it was under threat again. This time, gas and oil have been sniffing around that part of Western Australia for a very long time. So they were in the middle of another grassroots campaign to save the reef, which again has been successful, but again, they're still not completely out of the woods. Anyway, it all fell together. Tim Winton agreed to be interviewed. So it was amazing. So we're at Ningaloo Reef, we're snorkeling. I can't swim. I didn't let that stop me. And long story short, we had this amazing day out on the reef. We've already seen manta rays and dolphins, and we're actually about to go in for the day when John, who is a whale specialist, just stopped the boat and said, "You've all got to get in the ocean right now." So we've done that. As was the case for most of the day, had no real idea what was happening. And I was staring down at the seabed, well, what I thought was the seabed. And then it took me a couple of seconds to realize, oh no, what I'm actually staring at is a humpback whale and her calf. And I mean, look, I'm not a monster. I'd always thought nature was great, but I just hadn't had an experience like that before. And I'm not making this up. I kind of forgot to breathe. And indeed, I sort of started drowning a little. And so that's when I had to kind of come out of the water and get back on the boat. But I was completely overwhelmed. I wanted to cry. I couldn't speak. And suddenly, I mean, I'd been on this journey with climate change and it had been this kind of slow burn where I wanted to do more and more. But that was the moment where I just had this revelation. I just thought, you're an idiot, Judith. I mean, you've just spent years of your life, grew up Catholic, walked away from that. Ever since then, I've been like, oh, I need a purpose. I want to be part of something bigger. And then I went, you're in it, you fool. The bigger thing is the earth. That's what you're here for. We're all here to look after the planet. Wake up. So that's when I really started to go, well, this is a journey that I'm now on for the rest of my life. And,
Oh, wow.
you know, it's like there isn't a day that goes by when I'm not overwhelmed and when I'm still doing stuff. You know, yes, I've moved to where my superannuation is. I've changed where I get my energy from. I've still got to change my bank. It's like, you know, I was listening to a sustainability podcast, brushing my teeth, and I suddenly went, I've got a plastic toothbrush. What's wrong with me? So it's still like I make all these mistakes is what I'm trying to say. But I guess I also wanted to make the point that one of the other themes of the podcast series was that the way to deal with anxiety is to take action. And I also remember the first time that I went to the Port Phillip Eco Centre, because the bay keepers are there as well, and they do many things, but one of the things they do is collect the rubbish from around the bay and catalogue it. And I was talking to someone about that, and I said, isn't that just really depressing? And they said, well, I thought that until I started doing it, and then just doing something made me feel so much better. And knowing that I was doing this tonight, I rang the Yarra Energy Foundation and I had an absolutely fantastic conversation with Lachlan. I hope he doesn't mind me saying that. We had this full-on conversation about despair and climate change. And he talked about the fact that one of the reasons he now works in that sector is to feel that he's doing something and to help his, you know, to help his despair. I'm apparently a little bit unusual in that I am a renter, but I do also own a small flat in St Kilda West. So I am now, thanks to Lachlan, armed with all this information. And I hope to do everything I can, both as a renter, talk to my landlord, and then as a cigar chomping evil landlord, do what I can for the little flat that I own. And you will obviously learn much more about all of that this evening. But, and you know what? I'm not going to be able to do that to my flat overnight. But it's something that I now have the information for, and I'm going to start taking steps. And it is so easy to be overwhelmed. It is so easy to just despair, especially about what the federal government is doing. And yet, call me a Pollyanna, but I honestly believe that when we do what we can as individuals, it makes you feel better. It does just make you feel better. And I also believe that the more of us that take action, that has got to lead to a tipping point where, the government cannot continue to ignore that the majority of Australians want them to take some decent action on climate change. So yes, I guess I just hope that everyone here tonight, and thank you so much for coming, will listen to all the great information you're about to get, and that you will all do what you can in terms of that.
Thank you so much, Judith. What a wonderful sharing of your experience on the on your journey. Yes, round of applause. We're not really going to hear everybody, but you can do that one or this applause.
Can I just say one last thing? Actually,
of course, you can say whatever you like.
I just wanted to finish with one little story because also for the podcast series, we interviewed a guy called Tane Hunter, who is one of the founders of, it's kind of like a good news email called Future Crunch, even though that really sort of undersells it. And when I asked him if he was just in a state of despair about climate change, he said, well, look, no, I'm not, because I'm doing everything I can. And he said, you know what? I don't know if it's too late. He said, all I know is that if the world ends, I want to be at the party where we all sit around and go, well, at least we did everything we possibly could, instead of being at the party with the pessimists who are just sitting around going, I told you so. And I want to be at that party as well. And I hope to see everyone there. But of course, the world won't end because we're all going to get off the gas and things are going to improve. But thank you.
Fantastic. Well, look, any party you're at, Judith Lucy, I want to be at. So I'll do what you do and ensure I get to your party. Thanks so much. That was such a wonderful, as I said, description of your journey. One of the things a couple of things you touched on that I love, well, I love them all, but the fact that, it's about individual action because together as a collective, we will make large movement. So it's just fantastic. And secondly, I think you're absolutely right, or just like emphasize that thing that you said about it can be despairing, it can be overwhelming. But one way to handle anxiety is to act upon your anxiety. So if you are anxious about stuff around climate change, which many people are, and it's very understandable, start doing little bits in your own life, in your own way. You don't have to change the world tomorrow. Just change your little place in the world, little by little, and that every single person making that little by little change will make a difference. But also in your own heart, you'll start to feel, well, I'm doing something. I'm not just sitting back and letting it all happen. So I think that's great. Great things to remember and think about, Judith. So with the comedy stuff, I understand you might be getting a show ready, perhaps at some stage. And do you weave any of the climate sort of stuff into your comedy at the moment, or is it a bit too dark? Or
look, to be honest, I am doing a show next year with Denise Scott, and that is just going to be really stupid. I'm not going to be anything else other than that. But it's looking very promising that I'm going to do a follow-up to the Overwhelmed and Dying podcast series. It's going to be called Overwhelmed and Living. And that is, I'm hoping, going to be almost entirely about climate change. And then my next solo show is going to be all about climate change. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, wonderful. Well, and here you are saying you're not really a climate activist. Well, and there you go.
I'm getting there.
You're getting there. Well, the other thing I got asked recently, I was doing an interview because I sing songs, climate activist songs, and someone said, I apparently heard you're not that keen on being called a climate activist. And I said, yeah, I'm not really, because I don't understand why those of us who do what we do, talk about or sing about climate, are considered activists. We should be considered normalists. Yeah. Why am I like what we are singing about and talking about is the survival of our species and the survival of our planet. How come we get labelled activists, like fringe, unorthodox, strange, weird people? We're not activists, we're normalists. It's the other people who are kind of like there's something wrong with them, I think. Surely. That's why I don't really necessarily like the word climate activist, because it's like you're a weirdo.
We're not weirdos. was?
Well, it's clear we're not, and just to prove that we're not, at some stage, one day, someone, you might even see Judith Lucy in her nude suit, just to prove that she's not a weirdo. But we might have to save that for another night, Judith, perhaps, another night. So, for those of you who are interested, of course, which I'm sure you all are, Judith Lucy has a new book out. Judith Lucy there. And just to prove that she's not a weirdo, the new book is called Turns Out I'm Fine. So, I mean, if she said it, it must be true. Now,
true. I do talk about climate change in the book too.
And the other wonderful thing about this, Judith has agreed to donate a book for this evening, and we're going to be asking a question, something around what Judith just talked about. Then we'll be asking in the chat later on, towards the end of our broadcast. We will ask a question in the chat, and the first answer, correct answer, will win Judith's book, and she'll probably sign it.
I will. I absolutely will. And I really hope everyone was taking notes while I was speaking, Peter.
I should have warned them, shouldn't I? And like the recording, we do plan to have a recording, but it's not up yet, so you can't go back right now and listen to what Judith said. So you'll just have to go on your memories. All right. Thanks so much for the time being, Judith. And Judith's going to hang out with us for the night, which is just awesome. And she'll be part of a Q&A we'll do in about 20 minutes time, because in that intervening 20 minutes we have the wonderful Pete Mercurio from the Metropolitan Community Power Hub. Now, so as we mentioned, we've talked about YEF, and Judith talked about contacting YEF. YEF is a Yarra Energy Foundation, and they are running this Metro Community Power Hub, which is this wonderful resource for you and me to go, well, we just want to get our houses and our lives low emissions. How do we do it? And who do we speak to? And practitioners and people who can give us advice on solar panels, et cetera, and that's what YEF and the MCPH does. So can I now hand over to the wonderful Pete Mercurio from YEF, and he will talk for about 20 minutes on what MCPH is doing, and then we'll have a Q&A with Pete and with Judith, so you can put your questions into the chat. So if, for those of you who are unaware, so if you put your mouse onto your screen, what should come up is a menu bar at the bottom. And there's one of those menu icons it says chat, and you can click on that, and then you can type in a question, and our moderators will check them out and feed them on to me to ask to. They might answer the question in the chat, or they might feed them on to me to put to Judith or Pete Mercurio. So I'll hand over to you now. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Peter. Really do appreciate that. Thank you, Judith, for coming along tonight. And I appreciate you having a chat with Lachlan. Loving Lachlan's work with the Metro Community Power Hub at the moment, for sure. He was hired on to help us out with the Metro Community Power Hub. So I'll be writing up that report in his end of year assessment and say that he's done some good work there. So thank you. And thanks, Willie, for giving us that welcome to country earlier tonight. Now, for everybody in the audience, I'm just going to share my screen. I'm conscious of time, and there's a bit to get through because getting off gas isn't simple, but it sort of is at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm sharing, and of course my computer's going to take a little while, but everyone can see that pretty clearly. Just a bit of a thumbs up from someone, Belinda Hayden, perhaps. Everyone can see that. Peter, thank you. Beautiful. So the Yarra Energy Foundation. Who is the Yarra Energy Foundation? Which I think is a pretty good question because a lot of people haven't heard about the Yarra Energy Foundation. We were set up by City of Yarra back in 2010, around 2010, to help people take practical steps towards a zero carbon future. So whether that's installing solar or getting off gas or, just draft-proofing your home or helping them out with insulation, that's where we fit in. That's where we step in. We're a not-for-profit, and we're here to hopefully inspire and engage with as many people as we possibly can to take these steps. It's really important. I know, Judith, you're talking about, being discouraged by the discourse in climate change. And for me, I've been working in it now since 2004, and yes, I am very dismayed. I wish I was talking about this 10 years ago. But as it so happens, this is where we're at, and this is where we're moving toward. And there have been a lot of steps by the state government to help us along in that transition towards a zero carbon future. So some of the work that we do as well with public housing residents, I myself have helped over 400 residents with their bills, helping them understand their bills, helping them to make better decisions about who to choose, which retailers. There's heaps of retailers in the market, and which one to choose is a difficult decision. Switching is really difficult, particularly when English is not your first language. So through that process, I was able to put in $20,000 back into their pockets cumulatively by switching retailers. As well as that, we help businesses with energy efficiency audits, upgrading inefficient appliances in people's houses, as well as businesses too. And we're also investigating a real option, and that is community energy through community batteries, which I believe Belinda mentioned earlier is a real opportunity for us as a Glen Eira community moving forward. You may not know that the penetration of solar throughout Glen Eira is about 18.5%, which actually isn't too bad. There's some roofs that you can't actually install solar on. Most of those are slate, but you may not actually consume a lot of energy, so solar is probably not the right decision for you anyway. So there are reasons why you don't actually install solar too, but you're still buying energy from somewhere, so that decision-making process is something the Yarra Energy Foundation, as a not-for-profit, a trusted voice in the region of energy, can really assist you with. So what is the Metro Community Power Hub? It's a great question because I didn't know what it was until Sustainability Victoria put it out in the ether back in 2018. They initially started these community power hubs as a pilot program, one in Bendigo, Ballarat, and Latrobe Valley. And it was a raging success, I guess you could say, so much so that they wanted to use these community power hubs more actively, but more broadly across the state. So at the beginning of this year, around February, March, we responded to a tender that Sustainability Victoria put out to become the lead partner in what is now the Metro Community Power Hub, which is really exciting for us. So basically what it is it's a community power hub working collaboratively to develop and deliver a pipeline of socially acceptable, financially feasible, technically viable projects. That can only really work if there's an organisation like a Yarra Energy Foundation or an Australian Energy Foundation. We've got technical expertise who are really focused more so rather than profit on positive community outcomes and environmental benefits. That's where we fit in. We've done a lot of work in this space already with a lot of council partners. One of the reasons why I think we became one of the lead partners in this space, we helped the Latrobe Valley Community Power Hub during the pilot phase achieve some positive outcomes with their solar programs. So we've also added hot water heat pumps, split systems, heating and air, as well as an induction cooktop preparedness program in the works through the Metro Community Power Hub. But all this wouldn't have been available to us at all if we couldn't have our roundtable partners. The key community groups, our grassroots community groups, without which none of this would be possible. So we've got Bayside Climate Crisis Action Group, we've got the Glen Eira Emergency Climate Action Network, the Jewish Climate Network, the Port Phillip Emergency Climate Action Network, Lighter Footprints, which is a Boroondara-based organisation. Boroondara is actually a massive region. Darabin Climate Action now, who have been present in Darabin for quite some time. The Yarra Climate Action Network, or now rather, which I've been working with for the past 5 years or so. We've also got a social enterprise who specifically work with schools, which are sort of funded by the Catholic Archdiocese. So I'm really enjoying the different faith groups who are now coming board, climate change and climate change response, climate change solutions. It's really important when we bring lots of different groups, not just environmental groups to the table, but groups from all across the board. Faith groups are really important. There's a wide audience who may not be connected to an environment group, but they certainly are with a faith group or a sporting club. So we're looking to add so many of those groups as the Metro Community Power Hub continues over the next little while. So we're here tonight. I might go back real quick. We're here tonight to talk about getting off gas. And what I like to think about getting off gas from a household perspective is an all-electric home. And I like all-electric homes because it's back to the future, because it is a futuring thing. But it's also something that we have looked at, we as a community in the States and in Australia, not so much Australia, I suppose, but certainly in the States, back in the 50s, where there's a lot of things wrong with these pictures, but what isn't is the idea of going all electric. Now, what the difference is with all of these things is the supply of electricity. So the supply of electricity back in the 50s was nuclear. Now we've got so many resources when it comes to solar, which is the cheapest form of producing electricity right across the board, as well as wind and hydro. Obviously, we'll all have some opinions about hydro or nuclear or whatever, but wind and solar are really making up a huge chunk of our supply these days, which is important because when we're getting off gas, we really need to consider and think about what it is that we need to do to transition across to an all-electric home. And these are some of the things that build that all-electric home. Basically, what we're looking at is insulation, draft proofing. So if you've got, cracks in the walls or underneath skirting boards or some space underneath your door, that is a draft that needs to be proofed. We're also talking about solar PV and battery, heat pump hot water, which acts similarly to a refrigerator. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But essentially, it is one of the greatest efficient forms of heating hot water. And then you've got reverse cycle split systems, which you may see Mark Taylor, the former Australian captain of the cricket team, really spruik. I forget the product, but it's okay. And also induction cooktops too. So you may not realise this, but there was a report that was released by the Grattan Institute, which is a really great think tank in partnership with Melbourne University, I believe. A large home can save about $1,000 per year just by disconnecting from gas from day dot, which is a pretty big savings for a large home. And also, I don't know if you saw this as well, but Renew is a great group. We work with them. They're a part of the Metro Community Power Hub. They used to be called the Alternative Technology Association. They had a report back in 2018, which is 3 years ago now, a 5 kilowatt system, which is about average size system for a home, a family of 5 or 4, can save anywhere between $9,000, $18,000 across 10 years, even in Melbourne. So it's a pretty big deal. Solar PV, it's not a new thing. It is really, solar panels themselves have been around for yonks. Basically, Jimmy Carter, the president of America from 78 to 81 or 82, he installed solar panels at the White House. So it's not a new technology. It's mature, and it's grown in leaps and bounds since then. The wattage per panel is pretty amazing. That has grown even in the past year and a half to 2 years by 100 watts. Why is that important? Each panel is a wattage. So 270 watts, 300 watts, 390, 400 watts. You times that number by the amount of panels, and that gives you a 4 kilowatt system or a 5 kilowatt system. So for example, if you have a 4 kilowatt system with panels that are rated at 400 watts, you need 10 panels to fit on your roof. They measure about 1.5 meters by 1 meter. So if you're thinking about your roof and you're thinking about solar, keep that in mind. Basically, what we want to look at when we're thinking about solar, when the sun is shining, your panels are generating power for your use. So you want to shift as many appliances during that time to maximize and optimize your personal solar system. Anything that you don't use gets exported to the grid, and that's okay, because sometimes there's been some articles recently that the export gives you nothing. That's only at the moment. There's great scope for expanding that export widely to funnel into community batteries, as an example, which allows you to access at night when your solar system is obviously not generating any power. You've also got a battery system there as a potential if you wanted to add that to your solar system. It's quite expensive at the moment. It isn't a lot of what we're talking about tonight, and it has to be said, it is quite a luxury to install a lot of these things. Providing access to these opportunities, that's where the Yarra Energy Foundation fits in. That's in our negotiating power with our commercial partners as well. So it's really important that we all understand that, taking actions, it might be just buying a keep cup, it might be actually installing solar, it might be picking up cigarette butts that you see on the street. All these little actions actually do together have a huge impact down the line. I know that quite a lot because I've been doing it for such a long time. So it's really comforting and encouraging to see so many people here tonight thinking about this, wanting to do something about it. Heat pump hot water, like I said, you've got two systems here. One's an integrated system, one's a split system. I think I'd like to think there's obvious reasons in these images why. The one on the right is your split system. It gives you a bit more flexibility if you've got a smaller house and you need to put that compressor on the roof, as an example, or put it higher up. That integrated system there, I've got a really small land space in a house that I live in. Well, I haven't lived in for quite a while because I'm renovating and they haven't started. And it's been 8 months and it's probably going to be another 6 months. But it's small, so I need an integrated system if I was to get one. One thing to note about hot water heat pumps is that they're not noisy, but you do have to consider your neighbours and where you put that. The professional that's installing that through the network that we've developed through the Metro Community Power Hub will assist you if that is something that you're interested in. A hot water heat pump can range in between $3,000 to $6,000 installed. And all the product that we have, no matter solar, batteries, hot water heat pumps, reverse cycle, the installers that do this work and the product themselves all have to meet a crazy set of criteria that we have developed over time with Renew, but it's also got the stamp of approval from Sustainable Victoria and the many councils that we work with in the past. And councils in particular want to de-risk anything that they're looking at. They don't want to hear complaints, and that's okay. I can understand that, but we want to make sure that you've got product that works, product that lasts, warranties that fit you, and the service from a company that is reputable and actually care about the environment. So that's who fit on our preferred panel of suppliers. Hot water heat pumps, I'll just skip to the next slide because there's a bit of information about those. It's really important to understand that hot water heat pumps are, a piece of technology. Again, it works like a refrigerator, but in reverse. You really want to start with your bills and taking a look at your bills and when you actually use your energy. A hot water heat pump, particularly when you have solar PV, that solar PV generation can feed into that heat pump. That heat pump will retain the heat in that cylinder for a good 24 to 48 hours. So whenever you're generating your own power and that's feeding in your heat pump, you're saving money right there. Hot water systems in general cost you about a third to 40% of your annual energy consumption spend. So you kind of think of hot water or heat pumps like this as a battery. If you can't afford to get a battery, which ranges anywhere between $8,000 to $15,000, a heat pump in the range of $2,000 to $6,000 might be a good solve. Again, this depends on your situation, which we really want to stress. All these potential solutions, we really want to tailor through the Metro Community Power Hub for you and your situation at home. But you're probably saving in the bracket of $200 to $300 just per year by installing that. That graph here is from Sustainability Victoria. These are the running costs across the year for hot water systems, different types of hot water systems. That heat pump there at $185, you're like, oh no, it's second best. Well, that actually doesn't consider connecting in with your solar PV system. So it's a really good option. We've also got other options and other suppliers that might have better solutions if you've already got a solar thermal hot water solution. There are other options there that can feed into that. So do give us a holler, and Lachlan, feel free to put in my email address in the chat to help you guys out individually as well. So if for some people in Glen Eira, a lot of people in Glen Eira might have hydronic heating. It's one of the most comfortable forms of heating, I would say. It really is. But you probably got and tied to a boiler. That boiler is usually powered by gas. So in order to change off that, you can actually use a heat pump. You'd have a heat pump specifically for your hydronic system, and you'd also have a heat pump for your hot water system. So you need two heat pumps. That can be expensive. It's totally doable. That's one of the things that now that I've been working at Yarra Energy Foundation for about 5 years, and there's been different forms of participation in our programs and the level of participation. A lot of the times that I've heard from our evaluations of these programs and talking to people is, a lot of the time we don't think that there's actual solutions to these problems, and there is. They're right here. They're right here and right now. And when we're talking about heat pumps, might be a relatively new technology, and it is, but it's sort of also not. It's new in the sense that they're still between $2,000 and $6,000. They should all be $1,000. They shouldn't have gas storage units any longer, or electric storage units for that matter. It should all be this, but we can't progress the commercial industry to change faster unless there's a regulatory change federally, or we all just start buying this instead. And that's the power of community-driven climate change responses and climate change solutions really, really lies. So moving quite along, I'm hoping everyone read what's on that slide. I know I'm probably speaking quickly, but that is because it's 8:25 and my daughter is screaming at me, and she's 2 and she's very annoying at the moment. And we're going to move on to reverse cycle split systems. Reverse cycle split systems, they're your GECANs. You see a lot of these advertised, particularly in summer. They are the most energy efficient form of heating besides hydronic, really, in terms of just energy capacity and delivery. I really like the idea of reverse cycles and split systems for individual rooms. You can have multi-head systems that's tied to one compressor and outside. That all comes with a cost. During my looking at my renovations, I have 3 rooms, not that far apart. I wanted a ductwork in the ceiling, which wasn't too difficult to do, I thought, with one system outside. That was about $10,000. So it actually might be cheaper for some of you just to put in one unit in one room that you're in most of the time, as opposed to trying to replace all your ductwork. That might be the way to go, because you probably will be able to connect all of them with some technology that gives you a platform which you can use on your phone to set timers for 3 o'clock in the afternoon. When you're coming home from work or wherever, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're still getting sunshine in winter, and you set that for 2 hours to at 19 degrees, which is your optimal in the wintertime. That's going back to some time. I haven't said that for a while, but you're using your solar generation for your own needs during that time. And it's that period of time. And because you've got an insulated house, that warmth or cool air is retained until you go to bed. So that's what you're looking at. But I really like the central column here. That gives you a good guide of the system size that you need for that type of room. And we'll supply these slides after tonight, and everyone will be emailed it, I'm pretty sure. Tim's our great communications manager at the Yarra Energy Foundation. I couldn't do a lot what I do without Tim. Moving right along to induction. So induction cooktops have been maligned by chefs for years, but I can tell you right now, chefs don't mind them. Chefs are happy with them. Alice Zlarky, a friend of mine who you might know from ABC TV and on MasterChef, stands by them, which is good, I suppose, as a chef. But a couple of things to pay attention to when you're thinking about transitioning to an induction cooktop. You will need an electrician and a gas fitter. Basically, they need to make sure there's enough room on the switchboard to connect into that induction cooktop because of the amperage that runs through that wire. You also want to make sure that you clamp that gas naturally. If you keep saying naturally, keep thinking natural gas. If you clamp that, but that will need to be done, obviously, and safely. There's heaps of induction cooktops on the market, just as there are reverse cycle air conditioners. I really pay attention to some of the reviews online from Choice. They're pretty good. I myself am looking at getting a Bosch. What we're trying to do through the Metro Community Power Hub, I'm this close to finalising it with a couple of people, is providing a program for everyone who's interested with an electrician and gas fitter combo. So you're not calling 2 people to come out to your house, having 2 different charges. It gets really expensive. An induction cooktop, a decent one, $1,000 to $2,500 at least. But like I said, the problem lies in the labour and the labour costs. So with the Yarra Energy Foundation and through the Metro Community Power Hub, we're able to leverage our worth with these groups. And these groups are also, when I say groups, electricians and gas fitters, getting a combo person to do that work to prepare you for it can save you a lot of money. So a part of the work that we do at the Energy Foundation is not only trying to provide access to as many people on as many different income brackets as possible, but it's also to leverage the great community outreach that all our community groups are already doing to lower the price to provide that access for more people. So the Metro Community Power Hub, it's been a real joyride, to be honest, bringing together all these groups under one banner. Every group have been, for a very long time, advocating, campaigning to all levels of government. And what I find quite thrilling through the Metro Community Power Hub is that we can actually offer tangible projects that are owned by not only GECAN, but all the groups I showed before. So these are GECAN's programs, these are GECAN's projects, these are our programs, these are our projects. We're a lead partner in this, but we really want groups like GECAN to thrive. So certainly join GECAN, see what they're all about. Judith, you mentioned Eco Centre before. Eco Centre are a huge partner in what we do as well. We've run a couple of energy literacy workshops. Basically what that means is bill understanding workshops, and the Eco Centre are now going to incorporate that in some of their offerings to their community, which is brilliant. It's likely we're going to do a feasibility or a scoping study to find out whether or not we can put in a community battery at that location. That's really exciting. None of this could happen without the Metro Community Power Hub. So we have 2 streams, foundation projects, Metro Community Power Hub foundation projects. That is solar PV, split systems, heat pump hot water, induction preparedness, and those bill reviews. So you can stand by the idea that not only do you have GECAN's involvement as a community group, a trusted one, but the Yarra Energy Foundation, we're a not-for-profit. We've been doing this sort of stuff for a really long time. We're a small group of energy professionals and experts, basically working it up for profit, try and get the message and the word out there that these solutions exist. These solutions aren't accessible by all. We're going to try and make them accessible by all. So the way we choose our commercial partners is quite robust. It's quite a comprehensive due diligence process. We stand behind that, as does Sustainability Victoria and our council partners. And the reason for that, we really want to de-risk the program or all these projects for everybody. We're also here, Yarra Energy Foundation, as you'll think of us as your personal energy experts. We're really here on call, not after 5, please, but any times between 9 and 5, or email us and we will get back to you. We are a small team, but we do a lot of great good, and I'm really proud to have worked there for such a long time now, particularly because my dad grew up in Collingwood. It feels like it's a really heartfelt thing. I love it. So like I said, we negotiate about 20% off our solar systems and batteries for program participants in the Metro Community Power Hub. I'm trying to negotiate that for hot water heat pumps, but there's not much room for margin on there, particularly with decent and good products, which we look into quite stringently. But yeah, look, like I said, small team. Tim, our comms manager, started this, with us at the start of the year. Lachlan came on for the Metro Community Power Hub. But we've been able to achieve 2.5 megawatts or more since 2017-18 across all our solar programs across Victoria. So yeah, it's a proud achievement for what we can do with with the little inputs that we have. The energy bill review, I think it's a really good starting point for anyone out there. Really take a look at your bill. We're negotiating right now with retailers for a pure sole 100% green power offering. You might see on the market, I mean, everyone's coming to the party now. Origin's offering 50% green power in their latest retail offerings. That is legitimately 50% solar or wind, or they're buying offsets from that farm for your energy usage. There are some groups like Power Shop that also do carbon offsets, so planting trees. Belinda Hayden has a great group, More Trees Please. Check that out and connect with her if you want to plant more trees. There's another group called Planet Earth that does something similar. But look, I really want to place a real importance on the poor and low-income communities who are all with individual energy retailers. A lot of the residents in the towers specifically. The gas is universal, the water is universal as a payment, but not their energy retailers. And they're paying in some respects close to double. That may have changed recently, but from the research that I've seen, it hasn't. Currently, the Yarra Energy Foundation are working on providing a power purchase agreement. What that means is buying a bulk amount of power from a wind farm or a solar farm as a group for public housing residents. So I'm really excited about the potential for that. That's one of the Metro Community Power Hub's flagship projects, which is pretty cool. Flagship project, and for everyone out there, connect with GECAN to talk about a flagship project. That is absolutely anything you might think it might be. It could be anything, but it's got to be unique. It can't be one of the foundation projects that I was just talking about earlier. So, and it has to be an energy project too, mind you. So when we're thinking flagship projects, we're thinking, a community battery, scoping feasibility study for a community battery, for example. It could be a large scale power purchase agreement. It could be transitioning a retail street, like I keep saying high street because every suburb's got a high street, but it could be like a pocket of shops that, there's 10, 12, maybe 20. We can put them onto a 100% renewable energy offer through our negotiations with retailers at the moment. Well, we'd like to. We're waiting to hear back from them. But that's what we're aiming for. And that's the beautiful thing about the Metro Community Power Hub. It is a collection of groups, a group of people who care about climate change and responding to climate change. The Metro Community Power Hub and the Yarra Energy Foundation, what we're focused on is climate change responses and climate change solutions. And if you can bring a really unique idea to the table, or just an idea that you want to work on with us, please, we're all ears. So as it's to deal with anxiety, which is a really nice way of putting it earlier, is doing something, doing anything, doing a little bit, that's okay. And be okay with that too. I think that's a really important thing. So as a call to action, 8:35 is the time. I think I managed 25 minutes, so sorry about that, Peter. But look, it is an all-electric home is a step-by-step process. Judith, your apartment, I've had a look, great roof for solar. But that is a process. It can take 12 months at least to get the buy-in from the other tenants in the building or owner occupiers in the building to get it across the line. But it is worthwhile. A good friend from mine, his name is Peter Vadiveloo or PK, on Gurja Street in his apartment. It is a building that was built in 2019. No room for solar. Beautiful building, like it looks great, but it is rubbish sustainable wise. But he managed to talk all the people in that building across to get solar system. Took him literally 12 months to the day. It was amazing. I'm working with a really good colleague of mine installing EV charging stations in apartment blocks. One apartment block that he's worked on just started with one. It expanded to 27 just because everyone in the building realized that was happening at that moment. So because one person wanted to do it, 27 other people wanted to get an electric vehicle. Mind you, they switched from Porsches to Tesla. I don't know how I feel about making Elon Musk richer, but we're moving across to an all-electric home, all-electric apartment block. That's pretty cool. And the amount of energy that we can store as a collective, that's the amount of energy that we can potentially sell on to low-income core communities, aged care facilities. All you need to do is participate in the Yarra Energy Foundation Metro Community Power Hub program, and we'll keep you informed of what you should participate in. And that's probably, Peter Vadiveloo, that's all from me.
Thank you so much, Pete, from the Yarra Energy Foundation and the Power Hub. Awesome, amazing display of information. So we've got some time for some questions. We have had a number of questions in the chat. Thank you so much. Perhaps my first one, Pete, just in the mechanics of it. So, and a number of people asked this question. I've got gas hot water. How do I go about getting off my gas hot water? What would be your suggestion?
First step, you would need to basically register for a quote through the Metro Community Power Hub link that Lachlan or Tim has put in the chat. The reason for getting a quote is because you may have an option of getting a heat pump hot water system, which is electric, and may not have mentioned that it is electric. So that's your first step, and that's how you go about it. Simple as butter. You replace that with that system. But you need a quote. You need to get an understanding of whether or not that system works for you, whether or not you have enough space for it. They're really big things. It may not be the first thing you do, but you are kind of paddling blind without getting a quote first up to have an understanding of one, how much it costs, what's the payback. That'll all be in the quote. If you have any questions about that, come to the team at YEF.
Great, thank you. So just to remind people, if we don't get to your chat or your question that was in the chat, or you need further information, please, that's the whole idea of tonight, is to introduce you to YEF and to Pete and Lachlan and the gang there at the Metro Community Power Hub, and they can answer your questions in more depth. So I imagine that's the same thing. Say I've got gas burner cooker, Pete, so would that be the same thing? Okay, I want to get off that, so I'll give you a call and or send an email into YEF, is that correct?
Yeah, so if you just head to the www.yef.org.au website, you can register your details there. There'll be a comment section. Just type in what you're after, what you're inquiring about, and we'll get back to you. Granted, we've got a huge amount of people online today, so please be patient with our response times. They have been pushed out a bit because of the great success so far of the Metro Community Power Hub, which is awesome. But we'll get back to you and provide you, independent advice. A lot of these times, a lot of these solutions are really tailored to the house that you're currently living in or the apartment you're currently living in. So, it can take some time, but be patient. We'll get there. We'll respond to you and provide you with the best. And sometimes maybe the solution isn't to do anything. And the solution is actually by offsets through, Belinda's organisation or something like that. But we'll be able to guide you in the right direction, no doubt.
Great, thank you so much. So hopefully that answers some people's questions about those kind of steps. I smiled when you talked about drafts and insulation. I went to one of these similar talks a few months ago, and I was all, gung-ho, ready to get my solar panels up and ready to do this and ready to do all those sexy things, maybe even a battery. And then yourself and people were stressing, no, look, you've got to get rid of your drafts and you've got to do insulation, because then you stop and think about it and you go, duh, yeah, if there's drafts going through the house, it's no point. Like, it doesn't matter what your energy source is, you're just going to be wasting energy.
Oh,
And
Peter.
similarly with insulation, if you don't get your insulation. So unfortunately for those people who are interested, you've got to do the unsexy things. And so we've managed to go around our house and block all the drafts that are in our house. And the next step we're doing is getting some people in to come and do the insulation. So do those unsexy things first, and then you're ready to look at your power source. And also, don't forget, if you getting your solar panels. If you're not ready for solar panels, you can always buy, once your house is all electric, you can buy renewable energy or energy from renewable sources. There are a number of most companies, energy providers that now give you a renewable source option. Some of them they're via an offset, which is good, better than nothing, but others actually source it from a renewable resource. So that's the better option. And there are a number of those around, and I imagine Pete at YEF can advise people on appropriate energy companies to get their energy from if they want to get sustainable energy. Is that correct, Pete?
Yeah, absolutely. We can certainly help you with those decisions and review some of your bills as well. And Peter, you really touched on an interesting topic about insulation. Yes, it is unsexy. However, when you're warm and cozy inside on a cold winter's night, that is a very sexy thing. So look at insulation, install insulation. It's a great way of keeping the thermal comfort in your home at an optimal level. It's been written about so many times before. Whenever a Scandinavian person moves to Australia or a Canadian, they're shocked by how cold it is in winter and in summer in homes, because our building stock was this idea that, we're always at the beach and laissez-faire kind of attitude. Our building stock is just dreadful. And myself at the Yarra Energy Foundation, with a group like Environment Victoria and Victorian Council of Social Services, we've been working really hard at improving building standards and construction codes. That's another role at the Yarra Energy Foundation that we play. We also improved the Rental Tenancy Act that went through Victorian Parliament the year before last. Granted, it didn't do much, to be fair, but that's where we sit. So if anyone has any ideas about that in the ether tonight, feel free to email us. We'll push it up the chain for sure.
Great. So getting your home off gas, insulation, drafts, and if you can't do solar panels straight away, just buy from a renewable resource. Can Tim, who's in the back room there looking after the tech, can we get Judith Lucy on our spotlight screen? Because I have a question for Judith. And the person, I don't have the name of the person who asked the question, Judith, but the question was, can you take care of the planet and still have good hair?
It's a very good question. I am just a court jester at this point in the evening. I have just been wowed by all the extraordinary information that Pete gave us. So I'm just going to say to whoever asked that question, work it out yourself. and let's hear more from Pete. Honestly, that was so amazing, Pete. Thank you so much.
Well, perhaps if that person does work it out for themselves, Judith, we can ask them to let YEF know, Yarra Energy Foundation. That can be part of their advisory panel. Like when you go there and ask them that question, YEF can say, certainly it can be done, or I'm afraid not. But looking at Judith, she's looking pretty good there. She's saving the planet and she's got good hair. So look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that. Another question for Pete now is, if the power in the street goes off, will solar panels keep the house running, or do you need something special or a battery or something backup?
Unfortunately, if the power goes off and you don't have a battery, your power will also go off. If it's not during sunlight hours, you're still connected to your solar system, so that power comes through your inverter first. So you'll be using that first. However, obviously, as soon as the sun goes down, you won't be able to. If your solar system is putting that energy or excess energy into a battery, you can rely on that battery. However, it's likely that will turn off in the event of a power outage. It's particularly important, power outages, not just in Melbourne, but really in the hills, in the Mount Dandenong area. You can get off the grid entirely, which might be cause enough, because they're dealing with a lot. It's funny, I only mention that because I'm living in the hills at the moment while I'm doing renovation, my in-laws, and every other week there's a windstorm coming through, and every other week I hear, this is a big windstorm. This hasn't happened like this in an age. And I'm like, well, there's a reason for that, and that's climate change, and that's really what we're viewing right now. these excessive windstorms in the hills has happened 2 or 3 times, and it's cut the power out to many homes and families for weeks on end. And you're not just dealing with a power outage at a home, you're actually dealing with neighbours arguing over who replaces the fence. You're actually having neighbours who like each other, who've got generators running 24/7 for power. So putting the power lines on the ground makes sense, but actually disconnecting from the grid, it's a really difficult thing to do. It costs a lot of money. So as soon as you're tied to the grid, if there's an outage, it's very likely you'll have an outage too.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. A couple of people asked about the meters, Pete. So I got rid of all appliances. So this is Jimmy. He said, I got rid of all appliances. Good on you, Jimmy. But gas company wants $1,500 to remove the meter. Any tips?
Oh, I don't have any tips for that. I'm sorry, Jimmy. It's probably going to cost you $1,500. I would clamp the gas and disconnect from your retailer. You probably have to continue with the meter, the physical meter being there. But you can certainly disconnect gas from your retailer, not pay for it. You can do that.
Right. All right. And a question now for another question for Judith. This comes from Mark. This question, I think, same question from both Mark and Julia. Are you interested in getting into politics?
That's a really, really crazy question. And I think the short answer is no. But if I change my mind, this group will be the first to know. I will start my campaign right here.
Awesome. All right, you heard it here first, gang. When it's vote, because someone else put vote 1 Judith Lucy, and I think someone else might have put Judith Lucy for PM in the chat. That's awesome. So we'll run your campaign. Speaking, a couple of people just wondered. There's so many organisations mentioned: GECAN, YEF, MCPH. So GECAN, we're just a local community group. That's all we look after, and we're very focused on trying to get the city of Glen Eira as climate friendly as possible, as emissions friendly as possible, reducing emissions. And the Glen Eira Council, wonderfully enough, has committed to net zero emissions by 2030. So, and that was partly due to our pressure and with them and a number of other groups within the community. So that's GECAN, and we've invited YEF, which runs MCPH, to come and chat. You know, we contacted our people through our GECAN networks to give this information system. But of course, lots of people from outside GECAN are here, so that's wonderful. But you can just, if you're in Metropolitan Melbourne, just directly go to YEF. You don't need anything to do with GECAN. We're just kind of hosting this information night, essentially. Yeah,
and also just on that, Peter, we're a collaborative partner in the efforts of the Metro Community Power Hub. So the Metro Community Power Hub is a broader project in and of itself, but can only exist with partnerships with groups like GECAN and YEF. So YEF is the lead partner. We're managing it, but GECAN are very much a key cog, I guess you could say, in the wheel of making this Metro Community Power Hub work. And it's about community action, it's about community education, it's about community empowerment. It's all the above. So we wouldn't be here tonight without GECAN hosting. So join GECAN.
Yes, yes, thank you. You can leave your details, leave an email in the chat if you'd like, if you're a Glen Eira person, and we'll get in touch with you and join our wonderful group. A question to Pete from Viola, who asks, we have gas ducted heating in the ceiling. Can the burner be replaced with an electric heat pump and use the ducting, or some other way of setting it up?
Not with a heat pump, no. So heat pump specifically for anything to do with water, basically, really simply. You can reuse the ductwork that's in the ceiling cavity, but replacing the gas unit that you've got outside with a multi-head reverse cycle split system. Now, granted, I think a lot of companies will come and look at your ductwork and say your ductwork needs improvement, so they'll want to replace it. It might be a good idea to do so, to be honest, because if there is an issue with the ductwork, if there's leaks in that ductwork, your split system or whatever you choose to replace it with, and even the gas one for that matter, is going to work in overdrive, because the more that there's leaks, the higher that motor for an electric system will run to ensure you're getting the temperature that your settings are at. So you can replace it. It would be with a reverse cycle split system, probably with a multi-head splits in for multiple rooms. So you've got 5 rooms, 5 heads, up to 5, and you've got the unit outside that will convert that into heating or cooling for you. That would be the way to go. Or you're just replacing the entire system. Now that can get pricey. So that is like a 10 to 20 grand. Or you can just put in split systems, leave that there, dismantle or discontinue the gas unit that you've got, and just keep the ductwork there, but you just have split systems. And you're looking at anywhere between 1,500 to 3 grand for individual room spaces with those split systems.
Thanks, Pete. I hope that answered Viola's question. So again, just reminding you, my understanding as well, we have a wall furnace, for example, in our place, and we're looking to get that one taken out. And I think the Victorian Government has some subsidies around that you can get people, to a plumber or a gas fitter, to come and remove your wall furnace, and then again put in electric driven climate control thing, aircon and heating split system, and run it off electricity. Again, one of our things is let's get off gas and get onto electricity. Once you're onto electricity, you can buy green electricity. And the more green electricity you buy, the more it forces the electricity companies to move into that space and provide green energy rather than a fossil fuel energy. So again, you don't have to do everything at once. Just that's probably the first thing you could do, is just ring your energy provider, in terms of getting off gas. It gets your electricity supply off gas. The first thing you can do is ring your energy provider. Now, a number of us already use, as I said, they usually have 2 systems going. One is they use offsets, or the other one is they provide actual renewable energy from renewable resources. The energy from renewable resources, that's the one we've gone for, because most of us feel that's the better way to go. It costs around 10% more than what you would do otherwise to get your energy. So, for us, we just think that's money well spent. And of course, in a sense, the whole fossil fuel thing is cheaper, but it's cheaper in terms of dollars, but it's going to destroy the planet. So, the cost of doing the right thing is often a little bit more. And it's, for all of us just getting our heads space around that, go that we're so driven in our society to look for the cheapest. I am the same until you sort of think through it and you think, no, it's not trying to get the cheapest thing, it's trying to get the best thing. So it's only about 10% more we've found to go to our energy supplier and get actual renewable energy supply. Judith Lucy, as a renter, what ideas did you have, or were you given by YEF, or have you thought about in your capacity as a renter in terms of trying to get off gas?
Well, I think the first step, having had a long chat to Lachlan, is to basically mention to my landlord, in fact, and also try and work out how many other people are renting and how many people are owner occupiers, and just kind of get that campaign going in terms of speaking to other people in the block, seeing how interested they are in getting onto solar. And so I think that's my first step, is to talk to my landlord and talk to other people in the building.
Great. So that's a great piece of advice for everybody. So once again, if I can just stress, you can start getting off gas today in terms of getting off gas that supplies your electricity and getting off gas in your house. That's what we talk about. Contacting YEF, and they will advise you as the best things to do. Don't forget getting rid of your drafts and improving your insulation. A last question now, and that will come from Michael, who asks, how far away, so this would probably be to Pete, how far away are community batteries? Is it worth getting a household battery, or should we move on eliminating gas, hot water and gas for cooking first?
Yeah, it's a great question, to be honest. And it really comes down to making sure that you've got all the right information in front of you. I'm of the opinion, community batteries, for example, we're putting the first one in North Fitzroy, which is a funded program through the Department of Environment. So, look, the template is there. The business case for it to be replicated is being finalised. It's certainly a better option in terms of reducing the amount of resources that go into having batteries. So if every house had a battery, there's a lot of embedded carbon and resources going into those batteries. So in that respect, I think a community battery is probably a better option. More localized approach and collectively sharing a storage unit is probably a better option. So in that respect, I think you're probably best to look at a hot water heat pump or improving your heating and cooling or hot water usage at your home before you move on to a home battery. And if you're looking at a home battery, you might also want to consider that electric vehicles are coming down the pipeline faster than we realise. That can have the potential of acting like a residential battery would. So you'd be plugging in your car at home, drawing off the power in that car, which is rated at 4 times the capacity that a residential battery would be. So in my mind, wait for the electric vehicles to come through down the pipeline and have a better price point, and then tie into a community battery when you can.
Thank you so much. Hopefully that answered that question. I would just like to thank Pete from Yarra Energy Foundation, MCPH, and Judith Lucy, our wonderful special guest climate activist, the closet climate activist, Judith Lucy. Thank you so much for being part of this GECAN event and answering questions. And of course, Judith has donated a book. And, one step back. If you have, of course, any further questions, please get in touch with Yarra Energy Foundation, and they'll answer all your questions. Now, getting back to Judith's book, she has donated a book. Now, there was a question if you wish to win the book. The first correct entry into the chat will win the book. Now, the question, I'm going to ask the question, and then I'm going to play a song. The song's a good sing-along, got a bit of a sing-along line in it. I'd love you to sing along. It's all about people power and all of us coming together and leading the way, basically, because we all know that the government are laggards and not moving fast enough. So let's us as the people lead the way. So here's the question, drum roll, please. The question is, what is the name of the reef that Judith Lucy mentioned when she was chatting earlier tonight, where she had the amazing experience that she did? Okay, while you all put your thinking caps on, I'll start this song. All around I see what's happening to you and me. Politicians make no sense. They lost our confidence, but a change is on its way as the people have their say. People cannot be denied when the numbers are on their side. Come on, people, let's lead the way. It's our country, let's have our say. Come on, people, let's swing into action. Let's make some noise and make it happen. That's what you're all doing here. Let's make it happen. Like climate emergency, resettle the refugees, First Nations equality, tackle wealth inequity, call out racist policies, everybody must live with dignity, save biodiversity, we can do it, you and me. Come on people, let's lead the way, it's our country, let's have our say. Come on people, let's swing into action. Let's make some noise and make it happen. Let's make it happen. Yeah, let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. Get off gas. Let's make it happen. What can we do? What can we do? There's so much to do. So much we can do. Online petitions, start conversations, join your local action group, march in the streets, email your politicians, meet with your politicians, phone up your politicians, get the message about politicians. One more thing, it's a big, big thing. One more thing, it's a big, big thing. Vote for parties committed to real and swift change. Come on people, let's lead the way. It's our country, let's have our say. Come on people, let's swing into action. Let's make some noise and make it happen. Hey, let's make it happen. Clap your hands. Dance in your nude suit. Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. Let's get off gas and we can make this all happen. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed that. Oh yes, there's a question in the chat. It's from someone who says, where can we find Peter's amazing music? Oh, that question comes from my mum. Thanks, Mum. So you can find my music on Peter Vadiveloo is my name, and petervadiveloo.com.au is my website. I have Facebook. I have a Facebook Peter Vadiveloo Music, and SoundCloud and Bandcamp and all those things, stuff about all those amazing things around social justice and climate justice. So if you like those sorts of songs, I'd love to hear from you. All right, now I'm getting to the moment where I have to mention or announce the winner. So I'm looking at my phone, I'm gathering someone's going to, in the back office, is going to send me a message as to who was the first correct answer. Can someone send me that message on, we've got a little, all the tech people have got a little WhatsApp group. Okay, I've got a message now. The first correct answer for Ningaloo Reef came from Jane Brownrigg. Congratulations, Jane! Give a round of applause.
And
even if you didn't win.
Jane, you know, if you don't want the book, just for the love of God, recycle it. Feel free to use it as toilet paper. I'm not remotely fast. But I would just like to say a big round of applause for Peter for doing, not just for the song, but for emceeing tonight, Peter, and just doing a great, great job. Thank you. Cheers,
Judith. Very honoured to do it, and very happy to do it. Thanks very much. I'm glad I didn't manage to mess it up too badly, so that's good. All right, so a little wrap up now. Just the last minute. Thanks again to Judith. Thank you again to Pete from YEF. Thanks to all the hardworking people at GECAN who managed to get this on board. Thank you to you, all the people out there. Again, this is our country. We can make things happen. We can lead the charge, and by getting off gas, via the ways we've talked about tonight, by contacting YEF to get the mechanics of it, and ask any more questions. That's the way we do it. We will lead the way. Our leaders, so-called leaders, don't know how to lead the way, so let's do it for them. Thank you very much once again for attending. I hope you've had a wonderful night, and hope to see you around at a GECAN event again in the near future. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Good night.